my vehicle was songwriting, I needed to get those things out of me.
Some songwriters tell stories, others live them, and then there's Jason Isbell. A man who nearly lost everything before he found the words that would save him. At 22, he was a prodigy, a small-town Alabama kid with a guitar and a gift. By 24, he was living the dream, a songwriter and guitarist for the drive-by truckers. But the dream was built on shaky ground. The talent was undeniable, but so was the drinking. And when the alcohol took hold, everything else started slipping away.
By 27, his band had enough. He was out, and if something didn't change, he was about to lose everything else.
But then he fought back. He got sober. He poured everything into his music, and the songs that came next didn't just bring him back.
It became the kind of music that saves people.
Oh, but I sobered up, and I swore off that stuff forever this time.
So this is the rise, the fall, and the redemption of Jason Isbell. And oh yeah, he just came out with a new album, so let's talk about it.
Superman's a damn fool. Take it off.
Jason Isbell was born in Green Hill, Alabama, just outside of Muscle Shoals. His parents were teenagers when they had him, his mom just 17 and his dad 19. They were both working hard to make a living, so Jason spent a lot of time with his grandparents, just up the street. His grandparents had a farm with all kinds of animals.
What stands out is that his grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher, but also was really the one that taught him how to play music.
When I tell people my grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher, I have to make that distinction. Because if you go 60, 70 miles east of us, they're handling snakes. So it's like we weren't averse to snakes. We didn't do that. But we had this huge, loud rock and roll band in the church. So they had all the PV instruments and amplifiers, and it was loud, and it was beautiful, fantastic thing.
By the time Jason was 7, his grandpa was already showing him how to play the mandolin and eventually the guitar. They would sit together playing gospel and bluegrass. Jason was hooked. His grandpa played the lead while Jason played rhythm, and by the time he was 12, Jason was good enough to keep up with him.
The music was in his blood, his escape, his expression.
My granddad would play gospel songs for a couple hours, and I would have to do the rhythm, you know, and I was so small and my hand was like, took everything I could do to reach around the guitar and play. But then he would set the guitar down. If I made it through that, he would play blues for me. And he would set the guitar down in his lap and tune it to an open tuning and play it with the back of his pocket knife. And that was my favorite. That was like my reward.
His father was a house painter, always proud of his work and capable of connecting with people from all walks of life. And his mother, after going back to school, worked in interior design. But it was the music that Jason was drawn to the most. His grandpa took him to the record store one day, buying him albums like the complete recordings of Robert Johnson, a piece of history that sparked something in Jason.
I'm gonna write it letter.
He started to realize that music wasn't just something you played, it was the story that you told.
At 12 or 13, Jason started to realize that songwriting was its own form of magic. People are actually writing these songs, he thought. They're telling stories through them. That realization became the seed for his own journey.
Here's a cool story about one of his early songwriting experiences.
I was in the jazz band in high school, and we were playing this like Duke Ellington, standard or something that was pretty simple, and I wrote a set of lyrics to it, and I showed them to my parents in the car. I remember my parents were amazed. They were like, "You just wrote that? You just made that up?" But I made the mistake of taking it with me to baseball practice. I remember changing out and leaving this piece of paper sitting with my things at baseball practice, and one of the other kids got a hold of it, and they gave me hell. Everybody on the baseball team laughed at me. "What is this, a poem? What are you doing?"
But everything wasn't smooth sailing. His parents divorced, but still, through all the ups and downs, his family remained his anchor, and Jason never wanted to disappoint them. By 14 or 15, Jason was in a garage band playing rock music with his buddies, but by 16, he was playing country covers with his buddy Chris Tompkins, who's actually a big-time songwriter now. They even played at the Grand Ole Opry once, just them as teenagers, standing on that legendary stage, soaking in the energy. He was still finding his voice, still figuring out who he was as an artist. His mom listened to John Prine and other storytellers, while his dad was into rock and old country. Jason grew up absorbing it all. Isbell didn't just grow up in any small town. He was raised right outside of Muscle Shoals, Alabama, a place with a legendary musical legacy. Thanks to famed studios and Muscle Shoals sound, this area shaped the sound of Southern soul, rock, and country, drawing artists like Etta James, the Rolling Stones, and Lynyrd Skynyrd. That history wasn't just in the past. It was still alive when Jason was coming up.
But a pivotal moment came when Jason met session bassist David Hood, who's worked with the likes of Aretha Franklin and Bob Seger.
Jason would watch him play in local bar and grills, and when he finally got the nerve to approach him and tell him he played guitar, David took him under his wing. He became Jason's mentor in a way, teaching him not just how to play and different techniques, but how to approach the business of music with the right attitude.
But the people who played on those records, you know, you could still catch them at a local bar and grill, you know, playing on a Friday night. So I would just go and sit and listen to them at first, and then finally kind of worked up the nerve to tell them that I played, and they'd have me sit in with them, and got to be good friends with those guys.
How old were you?
I was 16, 17, 18 years old.
Isn't that kind of bizarre?
It is. It's amazing. It's ridiculously fortunate.
Jason hung on to every word that David said, and he knew that this was his path. This is where he belonged.
Check out this video I found of Jason playing at the Muscle Shoals Songwriter Showcase from 2001. He would have been in his early 20s during this video, but you could get a feel of what it was like playing with such talented musicians.
Jason! Let's go ahead, Jason, right here.
In high school, Jason played trumpet and the French horn. No matter the instrument, his heart was always in the music. After going to college at the University of Memphis, he struggled to find his footing. But then, he kind of came to a life-changing moment. While waiting tables, a coworker asked him if Jason wanted to open for him at a local gig. The only problem, Jason didn't really have any of his own original songs. So what did he do? He stayed up all night long writing 30 minutes of his own original music, just like that.
This was the start of something big, and this is what it probably would have looked like.
Half a mile of Arkansas.
Back in Muscle Shoals, he took his demos to Fame Studios, and just a little bit over 20 years old, he signed a publishing deal. It was a couple $100 a week, but it definitely was enough for him to live on at 20 years of age, and it was enough for him to keep the confidence.
He wasn't just a kid from Alabama anymore. He was an artist that had a real shot at making it.
After hustling through years of local gigs and paying his dues, Jason's big break finally came.
It all started when he met David's son, Patterson Hood, the co-founder of Drive-By Truckers.
Jason had been staying at Patterson's dad's friend's place, just trying to soak up the scene as usual. Little did he know that this meeting with him would change everything. About a year after meeting Patterson, the Drive-By Truckers were scheduled to play a house concert, but the guitar player backed out last minute.
That's when Jason got his chance. He stepped up, jumped on stage, and finished the set.
They played that house concert, and their guitar player at the time didn't come to the house concert for one reason or another, and I got up and finished the set and wound up staying with them.
They were impressed. Jason was thrown into a completely different sound, but he loved it. The Truckers were unlike anything he had played before, but Jason found a new kind of energy in their music, and they in turn opened his eyes to all kinds of new sounds and possibilities. By 2001, Jason was officially part of the band, and he spent the next several years playing with them. 3 records between 2001 and 2007. The band was riding high from their past album Southern Rock Opera, performing in front of thousands of people every night. They were known for their intense, raw performances, and Jason was right there in the thick of it, helping create the energy that defined their shows. But the most pivotal moment came one day when Jason woke up early and wrote Decoration Day, a song that would become a landmark in his career.
At first, Jason showed it to the band's bassist at the time, and he actually didn't think it fit with the sound of the band.
I got up before everybody else did and wrote that, and then the first person to get up was Earl Hicks, the bass player. and I played it for him, and he didn't like it at all. He said, man, I don't think that song's gonna work with our band.
But Jason knew that this song was special, so he took it to Patterson.
So I thought, I'm gonna wait to see what Patterson says, because he's kind of the boss around here. And when he got up, I played it for him, and he was just blown away. They wound up naming the album after that song, which for me was a huge deal, because that was the first real album I had ever been on.
This was the moment that Jason's songwriting went from being something personal to becoming a key part of the band's identity, and just showed how good he could really be. He went on to write 2 songs for that album, Decoration Day and Outfit, tracks that will define his place in the band.
Real quick guys, if you love our documentaries, I highly suggest you checking out our live performance series presented by Marshware. We have Leon Meitzen coming up for our next performance. He absolutely killed it in the studio, and I cannot wait for you guys to see it.
I'm a walk in the rain, your nice long drive on Highway 1.
If you like Jason Isbell, I highly think that you will like Leon, so back to the video.
I love his voice on Decoration Day, specifically that opening line.
It's Decoration Day.
His voice just comes through so nicely. It's a Southern Gothic tale of family feuds and violence, but Outfit is another classic, a deeply personal track where a father gives life advice to his son.
And an outfit. Don't ever say your car is broke.
As Jason grew as a musician in the band, he started to gain recognition with songs like God Dang Lonely Love and Never Gonna Change, becoming fan favorites for the Truckers.
Check out this performance from Conan in 2004. Young Jason in his mid-20s, he absolutely just shreds on the guitar. But with success came complications.
Jason had money, he had fame, and for the first time, he was introduced to a dangerous side of the music business.
The drinking, the late nights, it all became part of the routine.
Jason never really had a problem with alcohol before, but once he hit the road with the Truckers, it all changed. The nights blurred together. There were moments when he woke up unsure of where he was, surrounded by people, some even thinking he was dead. He would black out, wake up in unfamiliar places.
His dad, watching from the sidelines, didn't even think that Jason would make it past 30.
It wasn't until the band intervened that Jason started to see just how deep into a spiral he was. They told him to take some time off to get things straightened out, but Jason, he wasn't ready to let go. He said to the band, "I don't think you guys should tour as Drive-By Truckers without me," he pleaded. But later, he admitted that that wasn't really his place to say. The band made the hard call and said goodbye to Jason. Amidst all this chaos, Jason had been married to the new bassist in the band, but the relationship couldn't survive the turbulence. Jason would later reflect on the marriage, saying that they were both just too young and shouldn't have been married, but now, years later, they remain friends. It was a tough time for Jason. In total, he was part of 3 key albums for the Truckers, and the songs he wrote in his 20s were phenomenal for being so young. The alcohol had taken its toll, and his dad's fears about him not making it to 30 seemed more real with each passing day. But even in the darkest moments, Jason never gave up on his dream. He still had the music, and he still had a fire inside him that he refused to go out.
This was the beginning of Jason's fight, the fight to find himself, to reclaim his place, and to break free from his chains. But Jason describes this is actually how it went.
What was the divine providence that led you to get straight?
Oh man, it was another 5 years after that.
What were you doing?
I just started my own band and kept drinking.
But now, it's 2007, and Jason is on his own without the built-in fan base that had packed venues for the Truckers.
But if there was one thing that he had, it was his songs.
The biggest change in my life since touring with those guys, more than anything else, just the group of people I'm working with. When you're spending all that same amount of time with 4 or 5 different people, sometimes it can take some getting used to. Luckily for me, I knew the rest of the band beforehand, and I'd known them for years, so it was almost like falling back into some of the things that I was doing before I played with the Truckers.
The name The 400 Unit has deep roots in Jason's home state of Alabama. It comes from a mental health treatment facility in Florence, where patients would occasionally be taken out for lunch. As Isbell recalled, the staff would give a small group of the healthiest patients about $15 to get food, and it was easy to recognize them by their name tags and the way they interacted with people. When he was putting together a band, he saw a parallel, how musicians would arrive in a new town, each given a little cash for food, and then scatter to find a sandwich. Jason released Sirens of the Ditch, his first solo album. It had a raw, bluesy grit to it, like a man finding his footing while still carrying the weight of his past. The songs weren't as polished as what would come later, but you could hear that signature storytelling taking shape. Dress Blues was probably his biggest song off that record.
Or sleeping in your dress blues.
The song's about him. He was a guy that I went to high school with in Alabama, and when he was about 18, he'd just gotten out of high school and he went overseas, joined the Marine Corps, and went overseas and fought in Iraq and was killed over there. His wife was pregnant and she had a baby right after that.
Okay.
And, so I wrote the song about him, about his family and his, for his family and for his wife and his friends and stuff.
But with freedom also came the same old demons. The drinking didn't stop, and neither did the chaos.
But still, Jason kept pushing forward. By 2009, he released a self-titled album for the 400 Unit. It leaned into a richer, fuller sound. Songs like Cigarettes and Wine and The Blue showed the ability to capture heartbreak and nostalgia in a way that few others could.
She smelled like cigarettes and wine, and she kept me happy.
Then came Here We Rest in 2011. Jason was still drinking, still lost in it, but somehow he kept writing. The album had moments of brilliance.
Through those Alabama pines.
Alabama Pines won Song of the Year at the Americana Music Awards, but it was clear that he was running on fumes. His talent never left him, but his ability to control his own life was slipping fast.
It was only a matter of time before he hit rock bottom.
How bad was it back in the day when you were partying hard?
It was so bad that I can't have one drink ever again. That's got to be pretty bad.
Jason didn't get clean until he was 33.
He stated, "I quit because I was in pain," he later admitted. "I was intolerable." The people around him had seen it for years, but it took one person to finally get through to him, Amanda Shires. Jason met Amanda long before they were together, and Amanda is an amazing musician in her own right, and is even part of the group The Highwomen. But when they finally started dating, Amanda wasn't going to put up with the drinking. She watched him spiral, getting blackout drunk, waking up with no memory of the night before, and every time Jason would say, "I gotta stop. I gotta go to rehab."
So one day Amanda held him to it. He drank, so she called his parents, his manager, his friends, everyone who cared about him. There was no backing out this time. Jason was going to rehab.
The process wasn't easy. He was kept on Valium to manage the withdrawal, but for the first time in his adult life, he was facing the world sober. And this time, he wasn't alone. Amanda stuck by him, and not long after, they got engaged. Jason had lost so much in his life, but in the end, sobriety gave him everything he actually needed. What came next was Southeastern.
This wasn't just another album. It was a sober album.
Jason had always been a great songwriter, but now, without the alcohol, he pushed himself in ways he never had before. "I had to write songs that scared the crap out of me," he said. And it shows. Southeastern, released in 2013, was the album that took his career to a whole nother level.
Hard on the run, keeps a hand on the gun. You can't trust anyone.
The opening track, Cover Me Up, is a love song in its purest form. Raw, vulnerable, and dedicated to Amanda. He recalls the night she stood by him, waiting for him to choose a better life. He sings, "I sobered up, I swore off that stuff forever this time."
I swore off that stuff forever this time.
It's not just a song, it's his story, his redemption arc in 4 minutes.
Cover me up and know you're enough to use me for good.
Then there's Elephant.
Said and you're better than your past. Winked at me and drained your glass.
If you've never heard it before, stop what you're doing or wait till this video's over and listen to it. You will not regret it.
It's devastating, a song about love, loss, and trying to find humor in the unbearable. It follows a woman battling cancer, laughing off her fate as she fades away.
I think Elephant is probably my best song. Probably my best song.
And I might have to agree.
He sings, "She said, Andy, you're taking me home, but I knew she planned to sleep alone. I'd carry her to bed and sweep up the hair from the floor.
I'd carry her to bed, sweep up the hair from the floor."
I mean, if that's not a spine-chilling lyric, I don't know what is. The guitar is simple, the melody is haunting, and Jason's voice pulls you into the story like you're living it.
Try to ignore the elephant somehow.
Then there's Traveling Alone, another standout.
I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride?
Even Bruce Springsteen himself took notice of this song. When Jason met him, Bruce told him, "My son brought your record home, and I really like that song." And then in true Springsteen fashion, he started singing it right there.
Imagine Bruce Springsteen singing your song back to you. That's how much Southeastern meant not just to fans, but to legends.
This is where Jason's story changes. Southeastern wasn't just a career-defining album. It was proof. Proof that he didn't need the alcohol, proof that he could still write, and proof that he had something worth living for. From here, he wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. Jason had gotten sober, gotten married, and released Southeastern, an album that changed everything for him. But now came the real test. Could he keep the momentum going?
Could he prove that Southeastern wasn't just a one-time masterpiece, but the start of something bigger?
So in 2015, he released Something More Than Free.
It will come if it takes a lifetime.
And if Southeastern was about survival, this album was about growth. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard rock, folk, and country charts, proving that Isbell wasn't just a niche Americana act. The lead single, 24 Frames, had this infectious yet melancholic feel to it, and the lyrics stuck with people.
This is how you make yourself worthy of the love that she gave to you back when you...
It was poetic, and had that signature Isbell storytelling. But now it was reaching an even broader audience. Fans who had never heard of Tribe by Truckers or Southeastern were suddenly discovering Jason Isbell.
Now you know he's something like a pipe bomb ready to blow.
Then came the moment that solidified his place at the top. Something More Than Free won 2 Grammy Awards, and 24 Frames won Best American Root Song. For an artist who had spent years battling addiction and nearly losing everything, standing on that stage with a Grammy in his hands was surreal. It wasn't just industry validation.
It was proof that the risk he took in getting sober and telling his story honestly paid off.
With Something More Than Free, Isbell had transitioned from the guy critics raved about to a legitimate commercial and artistic powerhouse. He was still writing deeply personal songs, but now more people than ever were listening. And this was just the beginning, because if Something More Than Free showed he could sustain success, his next album would prove that Isbell wasn't just one of the best songwriters of his generation. He was becoming the defining voice of modern Americana.
It's knowing that this can't go on forever. Likely one of us will have to spend some days alone.
By 2017, Isbell had already climbed higher than most independent artists could ever dream of. He was sober, happily married, had his first kid, and a few Grammy wins under his belt. But with the Nashville Sound, he took things even further. Unlike Southeastern and Something More Than Free, which was more introspective, this album took a broader view, tackling topics like politics and the struggles of working class America. But it still had that raw, personal touch that made Isbell's songwriting stand out. Take White Man's World, for example.
I'm a white man living on a white man's street.
But one thing was clear, Isbell wasn't afraid to say exactly what was on his mind.
Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. You're still breathing, it's not too late.
And then there was If We Were Vampires, a song that might just be the most devastatingly beautiful love song of the last decade.
Right and wrong, it's not your hand searching slow in the dark.
It wasn't about a new love or passion, it was about the inevitability of loss. He sings, "It's knowing that this can't go on forever. Likely one of us will have to spend some days alone."
Knowing that this can't go on forever. Likely one of us will have to spend some days alone.
The song was haunting, honest, and unlike anything else in modern country music. It went on to win Best American Roots Song at the Grammys, marking another milestone in Jason's rise.
If We Were Vampires, Jason Isbell.
A whole lot. It means a whole lot to me. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Jason wasn't just an underdog anymore, he was shaping the industry on his own terms. I want to just give a quick note to another legendary figure that played a role in Isbell's journey, and that was John Prine. Isbell often spoke about how much Prine's songwriting meant to him, and in return, Prine held Jason in the highest regard. When Prine passed away in April of 2020, it was a heartbreaking moment for the entire Americana world. Isbell and Amanda Shires were among those hit hardest by the loss, and as they'd grown close to him over the years, Isbell honored Prine's legacy in the best way he knew how, and that was through music. In the wake of Prine's passing, Isbell continued carrying the torch for the kind of songwriting that cuts deep, just like Prine had always done. Here's a really cool clip I found of all of them playing together.
She don't like her age already. She thinks that crossing her legs is funny. She looks down her nose at the money. She gets it on like the Easter bunny. She's my baby, I'm her honey. I'm never gonna let her go.
By the time Reunions dropped in May of 2020, he was still a leader in the Americana world. His words carried weight, and he knew it. During the lead up to the album, he became more outspoken than ever, using his platform to talk about everything from politics to his dissatisfaction with the state of country music. His stance on social issues turned some fans away, but it also solidified his place as one of the most important voices in modern music. Reunions itself was another triumph.
What have I done to help? What have I done to help somebody save me?
Songs like Be Afraid and What Have I Done to Help wrestled with responsibility and personal accountability. While Dreamsicle and Only Children showcase his continued mastery of storytelling. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard rock, folk, and country charts, something that had almost become expected of him by this point. And then, of course, there was Weathervanes in 2023, proving that even a decade after Southeastern, Jason was still at the top of his game.
Did you ever love a woman with a death wish, something in her eyes like...
Cast Iron Skillet still makes me want to cry every time I hear it. There's honestly so many good songs off of this record, and it became one of my favorites for sure.
Don't wash the cast iron skillet. If that dog bites my kid, I'll kill it.
One song that's interesting off that record is When We Were Close, and you can only assume that's about the friendship and falling out he had with Justin Townes Earl before he passed away in 2020.
I was the worst of the two of us.
On Apple Music, I found this quote explaining the song, and I'm assuming it's from Isbell himself. I know it's a pretty long quote, so you can pause the video right now if you want to read it, but I encourage you to listen through a lot of that Weathervanes album, because I was pretty young when Jason was coming out with his earlier music, and really Reunions and Weathervanes made me take a deeper look at his older albums. A few others you should listen to is King of Oklahoma, and Volunteer is another good one. So many from this album I love.
Even as Jason stood at the top of his game, delivering career-defining albums and selling out shows across the country, life behind the scenes wasn't always as steady. For years, Amanda had been his rock for Jason, pushing him towards sobriety and standing by his side through his rise to the top. They had made music together, performed as a duo, and even won a Grammy for the Nashville Sound, a true power couple in Americana. But in December of 2023, the two announced their divorce, bringing an end to the relationship that had been woven into so much of Jason's music. Their struggles have been laid bare in Running with Their Eyes Closed, a documentary that had followed the makings of Reunions. It was a rare, raw insight into the personal battles behind the music. After the divorce, many wondered how Jason would channel the heartbreak. And here we are. It's early 2025, and now he just released Foxes in the Snow, an acoustic-driven, deeply introspective album.
Bury me Where the wind don't blow, where the dust won't cover me, where the tall grass grows.
This record is haunting, intimate, stripped down to just Jason and his emotions laid bare. And that's what makes Jason Isbell's story so compelling. He's never been afraid to confront his demons head on, whether it's through the hard truths of Southeastern, the anthems and redemption in reunions, or the quiet reckoning and Foxes in the Snow. His music has always been brutally honest, and even after everything, after addiction, the loss, and heartbreak, he's still here, he's still writing, he's still singing, and people are listening.
This whole record really feels like Isbell pulling back the curtain, showing us where he's been, what he's wrestled with, and where he is now. And it kicks off with Bury Me, which just hits you right out of the gate.
See the windmills turn up 55.
It's one of those songs that could easily soundtrack a movie. His voice rips through that opening lyric, and honestly, even stripped down to just vocals, it'd still carry all the weight. You just feel it.
And there were bars of steel, boys, and there were bars to sing, and there were bars with swinging doors for all the time between.
Then there's Gravelweed, which might be the biggest statement piece on the album.
And I was a gravelweed and I needed you to raise me.
He sings, I was a gravelweed and I needed you to raise me. And it's hard not to think of Amanda Shires there, how that relationship pulled him out of the dark places. There's this raw gratitude in it, like he's fully aware of how far he's come and who helped him get there.
I'm sorry the love songs all mean different things today.
Foxes in the Snow, the title track, just sticks with you. That guitar riff is so memorable, but it's more than that. There's something haunting about it, like it lingers long after the song's over.
I love my love, I love her mouth.
It really anchors the whole record together.
I love my love.
And then there's Ride to Roberts, and I love this one. It's kind of this upbeat sound, almost carefree energy in the way he delivers it.
We'll ride to Roberts in the afternoon.
He name drops Robert's Western World in Nashville, which just makes it feel more personal, like you're right there with him, counting cowboy hats on a sunny afternoon. It's got this New Beginnings vibe, like everything's green and full of possibility. He even played it on Fallon recently, and it was just as good live.
Say things that I don't mean, and you're the best thing I've ever seen.
But maybe the most reflective moment on the record comes with Crimson in the Clay.
Red clay under my nails, deep crimson on my skin.
That song's really about where he's from, Alabama, and how even though he's changed, his roots still run deep. There's this line in the song, I guess the city didn't kill me after all, and it kind of stops you in your tracks. It's him realizing he's grown, he's let go of some things, even says he doesn't have a use for being a good shooter anymore, but there's still this pride and appreciation from where he's from.
And I can flip a silver dollar from 100 yards away, 1911.
The crimson, the clay, it's always going to be a part of him. And that's kind of what makes this whole record hit so hard. It's personal, it's thoughtful, and it just feels real. Isbell's not just telling stories, he's letting you into his world, his past, and what shaped him. There are so many other great songs on this album, but we're over 30 minutes now, but let me know in the comments what you guys love off this record. What's your favorite song? And we also have to mention Jason performing in Killers of the Flower Moon alongside Leonardo DiCaprio. Man, he does a great job right beside him during this specific scene right here.
It's the way you are that bothers me. That's what it is.
Lord made me, Ernest. Ain't nothing I can do about that.
And it's pretty impressive for not having a ton of acting experience.
Isbell's influence on modern Americana and country music is undeniable. Over the past decade, he's become one of the most respected songwriters of his generation, not just among fans, but among his peers. Artists from across the musical spectrum look up to him, not only for his lyricism, but for the way he's carved out a career on his own terms. One of the most telling examples of Isbell's impact come from John Mayer, who once said, "Jason Isbell is the best lyricist of my generation." That's high praise coming from one of the most acclaimed songwriters in modern music. But it's not just Mayer. Countless artists in country, rock, and Americana cite Isbell as a major influence. He's often compared to the greats like John Prine, Bob Dylan, and Bruce Springsteen, thanks to his ability to craft vivid emotional storytelling in his songs. His songwriting has set a new standard in the genre. Beyond just the music, Isbell had always played a big role in shaping the industry itself. He's done it with all the relentless touring, brilliant songwriting, and a loyal fan base that connects deeply with his music. And perhaps more than anything, he's a songwriter. Jason Isbell has left an undeniable mark on Americana and country music. Even after all of these years, he's still at the top of his game.
And the best part is that he has plenty left to say.